Check, 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 check. All right, check, check. Here we go. Here we go. Looks like we are at day two. Okay, guys, let me make sure everybody is in before we dive in. So we have our three groups that will be involved. We have our achievers, then we have our VIP, then we also have our elite VIP. So as we transition, getting everybody to come on to transition over. This is day two. Once again, guys, this is day two of the Real Estate Gold Digger Fall Challenge 2025. So, welcome aboard. Just want to make sure that we have things in place. Everybody's on board, making sure there's no direct questions. Okay. All right. Looks like we are getting everyone on board. I'm excited, guys. I'm excited. Looks like the mics are working. We had a revamp of things, but we do have the mics working, so we are pushing forward. Once again, welcome to State of the Real Estate. Excuse me, Real Estate Gold Digger Fall 2025 Challenge. Excited to be a part of this and excited to have you on board. So, like I said, we have our three groups. We have our general achievers, we have our VIP, and then we also have our elite VIP. So, I want to make sure everybody is tuned in. As you guys view this, see this, be sure to give a thumbs up. Just say hello to everybody. We like people just to say hello throughout the process. We got a little poll that's going as well, just to see who actually did their homework. I understand we're grown people nowadays, so if we're going to actually do assigned homework, but trust me, this is the type of homework that actually pays off, that it pay off significantly. So making sure you're getting you guys involved, because what happens is that you do the homework, what happens is you guys are going to have questions, and these are the questions that you want to get answered, especially in my elite VIP group. I know we do a special uh, Q&A session together. You guys have been sending your questions, making sure that those get answered. For those who got into the VIP level, you should have access to that as well, and that's live. So how that works is traditionally what we do is we go in, the elite VIP, a lot of them have already submitted their questions that they may have. Um, and then we'll go through those, and then as you everyone else that has questions, they'll go ahead and type those questions in so that we can address them. Now, if there for some reason that we're going over time and we're not able to address them, what we do is we do get those questions answered that were submitted, and we'll create a different video and have that sent out to everyone. So just being cognizant of everyone's time and making sure that we're good to go. But with all of that said, guys, let's go ahead and dive in. This is day two of the Real Estate Gold Digger. So for those who are on board and recall what we went through previously, let me get this here. So mindset. The last session that we did, we had a big impact on what mindset is. It's so key, you guys. That was part of the homework. The reason I have you guys do that, you're going to find time after time that this is going to help you understanding what your why is. So be sure to do that homework assignment. Also, the promo code, if you guys haven't already logged into it, be sure to log into. I gave you guys free access to a particular course that gives you a deeper dive into a number of the topics that we talked about previously in day one. So that code, now if you guys should have received it. If you registered, you had to have registered. So once you've registered, you will receive emails, and it's going to say from Chris Brown. So make sure you guys are checking your spam for this information, but you'll have that link that'll allow you to go to the course, and you're going to input this code, REGD Fall 2025. With that, it's going to give you free access. Now, like I said before, if you want to go ahead and pay for the course, thank you. I appreciate it. I appreciate it. But as something that I'm doing for you guys, I want to make sure that you guys are getting involved. So this is an extra benefit. Everybody's asking, why is it not cost? Trust me, the value is going to be well beyond what you anticipate. We also discussed the 9 habits of highly successful people. So having highly successful people, uh, understanding what those habits are, that's very key, guys. You know, let's be realistic. It's very key to have these habits and being aware of what these actual habits are. So want to make sure you guys are aware of that. We also talked about building a contractor team. It's a huge money saver. Just understanding that process. Like I said, we discussed the 30,000 foot perspective of that, and then more detail is in that the course that I gave you guys with the code REGD Fall 2025. Make sure you guys jump on that. And then we also discussed understanding the real estate market. That was a very impactful piece from day one, making sure that you guys understand the real estate market itself. There were so many nuggets that were placed out there, and just having that conversation with a number of you will help you moving forward, and it also may generate some questions. That's why it's important, for if you did not get your VIP status or even your elite status, it's always important. These are why you want to have these questions answered, and these are a lot of the questions that we do address for our VIPs and elite VIPs. So keep on keeping on, keep paying attention. At some point, I'm sure your questions will get answered. It just may be a little bit down the road. Some of us like to have our answers right away. So totally understandable, but we will definitely get on board with that. So with that being said, let's see what we have here. We did our recap, making sure you guys have that true understanding. I did want to go over what I call a bonus insight, and this is something that I've made mention to, but really didn't go into detail about it. And what I mean by that is that there's a couple of plays that are out there that people are able to make $100,000. But not all. But the main thing that I was trying to tell you guys is that these investment properties, not every deal will work out for you. And it may be a great opportunity for someone else, but it may not be the best opportunity for yourself. And a lot of people are asking me, well, why do you partner with people? If it's such a deal, then why don't you just take it yourself? Trust me, not every deal is a deal for me specifically, but it can be a deal for someone else just because of their current situation. And I'll explain to you as we go through this case study. This is a real case study. And I want to say that this particular case study is probably, let's see here. It's definitely within the past 12 months. I can tell you that. From probably way less than that, but I'll give you that perspective. In the past 12 months, you're going to understand some of the things about the super team. Um, be sure to check out that free bonus piece that I did provide to you guys. And of course, there's always homework whenever we're doing this. So I always want to keep you guys in the know and keep you in a reminder that, hey, we do have some opportunities out there. And we want to make sure that you're staying on board. But for this particular case study, I want you guys to take a look at this. So this is a particular property that was actually for sale, um, motivated seller, solid property, very solid property. Now, give you the scoop. So it's 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, 2-car garage, approximately 2014 square feet. And I say 2014 square feet. It actually, on the rear of the property, it actually had a sunroom that was under roof as well, that did not count as heated square footage. So every time that you're typically looking at a property, you're always looking for different ways to add value. So with that sunroom or screen lanai being under roof, they could close that in easily because it already has a concrete slab, is under roof. They can close that in and add square footage to that property, meaning also adding additional value. So that was some of the things. But this was a pretty solid property. Now, why this property works out for these individuals is because what we did is we ran some comps. And comps, as I've mentioned before to you guys, comps are comparable properties that have actually sold. Keep that in mind. Just because a property is listed at a particular price doesn't necessarily mean that those properties are actually going to sell at that price. So as you guys see a few pictures, I want to show you a few pictures because it has some unique features. but it may seem a little dated. It may seem a little dated. As you guys look at the kitchen in the upper right hand corner, the kitchen is definitely dated. See a few things on the exterior of the property that may want to be refreshed, like maybe the color. Looks like the garage has a big dent in it, so replacing that. Looking at some of the living room, dining room area, family room area, it definitely looks dated. So it can definitely use some upgrade, making it modernized, but it's in solid shape though. That's the thing. It's not like it's got mold on the walls, everything's falling apart, but it's in solid shape. It was kept up well. So, reason this works out for someone else besides myself is because I was working with a family, a couple. It was a couple. They were looking for a property, and they were trying to determine if they should buy a home, move-in ready, already has all the bells and whistles that they're looking for. So what happened was, and long story short, is that we just weren't finding the right property for them. They wanted to make, they liked a few properties, but the communities they didn't like. They wanted something that was going to give them a little bit more space, something that was going to be closer to the city. So I told them that we may want to consider properties that may be on the market that may be a bit dated, but it could be an opportunity for you. And what I mean by this is that the seller, like I said, the sellers of this property were motivated and they realized that the property was very outdated. And with that being said, now we could have purchased a property in one of the other neighborhoods. And that means if it had all the bells and whistles that they wanted, it means that they were going to be purchasing it at the top dollar. Okay, top dollar. By purchasing it at the top dollar, what happens, what typically happens is when they purchase at that top dollar, there's no equity. So when I'm working with people, I'm always asking questions, trying to see what they're trying to do. Not only they're trying to stay within a particular payment, but they also, if they're buying a home, they're looking at future growth when they have little ones, taking them to school, college, and so forth along those lines. Say if something comes up. So what I did speak to him in reference to is that if we were to purchase a property that was a bit dated, that had the bones that you needed, then we could possibly allow you to go ahead, remodel the home yourself, and it will have all the bells and whistles that you specifically want. And what it'll also do is you'll be able to do that and then also have equity. And they were like, well, what do you mean by equity? It was just like, doesn't the property have equity? Well, what happens is equity, this is a situation as I'm pitching this particular property to them, I was like, hey, this is a particular property where you can actually force your equity. And they were like, well, what do you mean? Well, if you buy the property at the top of the market, you're buying it at top dollar. There's no equity there. You're buying that at only equity that'll be there is probably the down payment that you'll be required to do. So, which was for them, it was 3.5%. Okay, they were looking at the FHA and a couple of other products that they may have had. So they were first time home buyers, but their price point was, in today's market, it was a bit higher. So with that being said, I said, hey, you can have that at 3.5% and get some additional assistance with closing costs. If we did say new construction, but your equity will be very minimal. But if we look at this property over here, what I was able to show them was that, hey, you can have over $100,000 in equity in this property if you were to purchase it. Now, the property is move-in ready. Now, it is dated, don't get me wrong, but it is move-in ready. Say if you were to just live out of your primary bedroom while you had work being done to the property, getting upgraded, getting your kitchen upgraded. Say if you purchased a home, you made that sacrifice for a few weeks while things were getting done. Because what I mean by things getting done is that if they working with some individuals, some contractors, like I said, part of the super team, they were able to get the property. We purchased the property. While we were going through the process, we were actually getting bids on different jobs for the property. Now, it did take us about between 30 and 45 days to close, which we didn't mind it taking a little bit longer, at least on our end. We told the seller that it'll take 45 days. But what it was doing, that extended time, we could have closed much sooner. But with that extended time, um, it allowed them to actually get bids on work that needed to be done at the property. So with that being said, by getting the work done, getting the contractors, getting the bids, getting the offers, we didn't have to rush. So we were able to get multiple bids for different aspects of the property. So by the time we actually closed, we were ready to hit the ground running with getting the contractors in line. So we knew when we were closing. We had contractors in there that very same week. We closed at the beginning of the week. By the end of the week, contractors in there starting on the demo, because you got to have demo no matter what. So demo, you don't have to buy anything or any material, anything along those lines. Got the demo out of the way. But super long story short, they had over $100,000 in equity. They were able to rehab the house, remodel the house so that it fit their criteria, things that they wanted in it. And I wanted to show you guys, kind of show you what some of the comps look like. Remember, square footage is 2014. Just remember that part. So as we look at this, so what we did was we looked at properties that were in the area. Okay. What we're typically looking at, let's see, we're looking at available listings. Okay. Looking at the square footage of those available properties. Like I said, our square footage was 2014. Available properties right now at 1785, they were selling for 545, 515. Now, keep in mind, as of right now, at the beginning of the process, the seller was selling for 400. So keep that in mind. So additionally to that, as you guys see the 2014 square feet, that's the amount of square footage uh, of the property that they were looking at. We did find out an average of what actually sold, properties that actually sold. They had an average of, was it 308? Okay, six. So that gave it um, a value of 620 with the 2014 square footage. And this is just going by square footage. So it's always important to kind of see what's actually selling in that at that same price point, what those properties actually look like. So if you really want to get the value of your property, you would definitely look to see what the calculation is. Like I said, the 620 and moving from there. So what we did do is we looked at if this was a hard money deal. So we said if the square footage value, if we were to kind of go by these numbers here, the 308 sold per square foot, then it would give us 620K in value. So we knew that we were walking into a property of value. But if you guys are familiar with some of the quick closers that are out there, you can leverage the 70% rule. So it will tell you how much you would need to offer. So 434, they would offer that. But then 434, then we said plus what repairs would be. So we said about 60K in repairs because there's primarily the interior that needed to be updated. So you had your flooring, you had your kitchen. Kitchen's going to be expensive just because it's a good sized kitchen. That's where the most expense is going to be. Flooring, painting, and then both bathrooms being upgraded. So they came together with a payment of about 60K in remodeling costs, and then we did that times 3.5%. The reason we did 3.5% because that was going to tell them how much they were going to actually have to put down because they were looking at an FHA. Now, like I said, the property was move-in ready. Now, what made this even more unique is that there's a product out there, and this is where when you're working with your super team, they'll understand that there's products out there that will actually finance that 60,000, the purchase plus the 60,000. So with that being said, it would they would finance both aspects, and you would only have to come up with that 3.5%, which was approximately 17,000. So, and this is money that they had. Actually, they had a little bit more than that. With them having a little bit more than that, they were actually able to. It made sense to them. They say, "Hey, we can get this property, get the property, get it fixed up, and with it being fixed up the way that we want it, we're going to be getting a property that's move, the way that we want it, livable, all that great stuff, and then we would actually be able to have equity in the property. Now, having equity in the property, like I said, the total was 494. That was the 434 plus 60K. Looking at 126,000. So after the fact, they would have $126,000 in equity. So having that amount of money in equity after the property, or they could have went ahead and bought one that was already had all the bells and whistles already put together for them, and that, but they wouldn't have any equity. Now, over a number of years, they would develop equity because they're going to pay down the principal and interest on it. But if you can start off with 129,000 after it's remodeled and everything for you, 129,000 in equity, wow, that's how you build generational wealth. Now, that's a scenario that for me, it did not work out because one, they were looking at this home as being their primary. So with them being their primary, like I said, some of the things they were able to do, like the 3.5% down, they were planning on living in that property for a period of time. For them, and then for me also, it didn't fit my buy box. My buy box is a little bit different. The only reason it didn't fit my buy box is because maybe partially to do with the location, but it did have a lot of the items in my buy box that would make me consider it moving if I was going to take a risk. Just knowing how the market is, I didn't need a primary home, but this would be something for fix and flip. So somebody with a higher risk level, they would think about trying to flip that. So purchase, buying and selling it. But these individuals, they were going to buy it and hold on to it. So they were able to do that. And this works with them. And their risk tolerance is very low because they're planning on staying there. So they can get the property, fix it up. And then what they can do is go back and refinance the property. Because a lot of times, depending upon how they did their initial financing, like I said, if they went with the product that allowed them to only 3.5%, and they also finance the repairs, they can keep moving forward with that rate, or at some point refinance it, maybe to get a little bit lower interest rate. Obviously, interest rates are a big deal in 2025, so always keep that in mind. So, however it may go, but that's $125,000 in equity, and that's a real scenario, guys. That's not just theory. That is a real scenario, actual property in the Tampa Bay area, where these couple actually picked up that property, and it's a great opportunity. It's a great opportunity for. I'm happy for 'em. I'm glad they entrusted me and went through with that process. So, guys, we have so much more to talk about. We still got, like I said, we're typically here when we do these sessions. We're going to be here for an hour just going through that information. But I wanted to share that with you because that's a proper way of uh, building wealth. When you're building wealth in such a way that benefits everyone that's involved, that's what you want to do. So keep in mind, as we are moving forward with this, I want to make sure you guys are getting the best information. Direct your questions. If you guys have your questions, make sure you guys are asking your questions. Other information that you guys have is building your super team. Be sure to check out the free product that I gave you guys so that you guys can actually determine the what the super team is. It's a 13 team member. Uh, Actually, for those who don't recall what it is, it's a 13 team members that you're gonna probably need to be successful in this real estate world. It's not the only thing that you need before you get started. Don't get me wrong, but you're gonna be talking to multiple people, and as you're talking to them, these are some of the people that you may want to make sure that you are speaking with. Appraisers, are real estate attorneys, probate attorneys, real estate CPAs. Definitely look at the free tool that I gave you guys that you guys have access to with the code. Property managers, title companies, bankers, mortgage brokers, real estate agents, GCs, and inspectors. These are people who are going to help you out in your process. Insurance agents, who else we got? Investors, wholesalers. These are people who are going to have deals for you. These are people that you really want to uh, communicate with, keep in your circle as you're going to different networking events. You're going to find people that will be able to basically just help you throughout this process. Now, these are things that you guys need to be mindful of. Like I said, it's not that you need these individuals to get started, but these are people that will help you uh, throughout your process. It is a journey. Like I said, it's always going to be a journey for you guys, and I want you to be successful. So another key point, big topic that we will discuss tonight is basically your investment goals and strategies. A lot of times people are going through this process, they are not fully aware of what they would like to do in the investment world. So understanding what your investment goals are and what your strategies are going to be, this is where we come together, and this is where I am going to bring value to you guys as you guys go through this process. Okay, so let's go ahead and dive on into it. So as we go through this module, this is where we get to the heart of the real estate journey, setting your investment goals and strategies. Think of this module as a personal GPS. Yeah, that's basically what you can call it. Find it as your personal GPS, kind of like a business plan in a sense. Without clear goals and solid strategy, you might end up driving around in circles, running out of gas, or worse, ending up in wrong neighborhoods. But don't worry, we're here to make sure that you are on the right path. And I say that because it's as you guys are listening to me and I'm giving you guys past experience that I've had and having you understand the real estate market. That's why you got to make sure you go back and do your homework and listen, review that information that's in that free tool that I gave you guys. You're going to find out why you're purchasing certain properties. And if you're purchasing certain properties, what understanding what your end goal is. Are you buying and holding, buying and selling? You know, a lot of properties that you're buying and selling, you want to make sure that this is an opportunity for you to actually sell it because you don't want to have to hold on to it. Okay. That's usually the backup plan. You want to go into the situation being able to sell the property if your goal is to buy and sell. So keep that in mind. So defining your investment objectives before you start buying up properties like monopoly pieces, you need to ask yourself some important questions. Why are you investing in real estate? Is it to build long term wealth, generate monthly income, or maybe just to have a cool story to tell at parties? Now, that's why I say it's always understanding what your why is. So that's why I have that conversation beforehand before we dive into everything so that you guys have a better understanding. So long-term wealth building. So, what is long term wealth building? Long term wealth building is if your goal is to build long term wealth, you're looking at properties that will appreciate over time. Think of this as planting a tree. It takes time to grow, but eventually it will provide shade, fruit, and a nice place to hang a hammock. So, building long term wealth, you're not making a lot of money now. You know, it's different from it's going to take time for it to generate. Building long term wealth, this is what happens when you are this is how you make money when you're asleep. When you ever hear people say, "Hey, I want to make money while I sleep." Well, if you're making money while you sleep, typically what this means is that you are building long-term wealth. You know, you're building wealth. It's operating while you're sleeping. Okay. Now, another piece of this puzzle is, are we doing this for monthly income? Monthly income, if you want monthly income, typically what that means is if you want to generate a steady monthly income, you'll focus on rental properties. This is like having a goose that lays golden eggs. Just remember, geese need care, feeding, and in this case, property maintenance and tenant management. So that means that you're going to have to be a landlord. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean that you specifically have to be the landlord. And I always say this to individuals because this is the fastest way to get burnt out in real estate investing is if you are becoming the actual property manager and the actual landlord. Because what happens is now you're dealing with all of the repairs that need to be done to the property. Now you are taking all of the phone calls. Now you're dealing with the stress when you're out of town and people are calling you saying that there's a flood and all this other stuff, and now you got to make phone calls to get people, emergency phone calls to get people over there. This is why it's important when you are going through this process that you may have a mentor. Having that mentor is going to one, educate you on the process of knowing that, hey, when I'm purchasing a home, I need to run my numbers so that I actually have property management in place. Understanding what my end goal is, if I'm planning on buying and holding rental properties, that means I'm actually going to have money set aside, not necessarily money set aside. I'm going to have it in the budget, typically around 10%, to have property management in place. Okay, 8 to 10%. So having property management in place, those numbers are already there. So you're already accounting for that. So it's not like you are losing additional money. You're accounting for it in the beginning. So when you're making that offer on the property, you'll understand that, hey, these numbers make sense, and I actually have property management in place. I have potential vacancy information in place. These are things that are already accounted for in the beginning. So when you're making that offer and understanding the type of property that you're getting, you won't have that bigger issue down the road. Okay. So rental properties are ideal for monthly income if that is your particular goal. Quick profits. Yeah, we'll always talk about quick profits. If you are looking at the quick profits for those who love a good challenge, flipping houses might be the game for you. This involves buying properties at a discount, renovating them, and selling them for a profit. So, like I said before, is understanding what you're going to do when you get into the deal, buying and selling. So, if your goal is buying and selling, understand what you'll need to do. That's why it's important to understand the market that you're buying. Go back to that tool with the code REGD Fall 2025. You'll have access to it. Understand what it means by understanding the market, being able to make an intelligent decision as you guys are going forth. There's always risk. There's always it's an investment. There's always a risk, but at the same time, you want to be able to reduce those risks so that you are successful with it. Okay, so keep that in mind. It's a bit like being on your own reality TV show, minus dramatic music and commercial breaks, because it's you're gonna have some challenges. Typically, you do have some challenges, but while you're going through this course, it's primarily understanding the challenges that you may face and then how to overcome those obstacles. If you're taking the time to actually go through this and actually put a few of these items into place, you're going to reduce the risk that you're actually going to take. Because, like I said, this is an investment. You don't want to have to invest all your money and then lose your money. Okay. At the end of the day, it's buying it right so that you won't have the big stresses at the end of the day. Okay. So keep that in mind. So other things that we like to talk about, short-term versus long-term investment strategies. There's different strategies with real estate. You're going to hear so many other opportunities that are out there in regards to being able to invest in real estate. I encourage you guys to really just hone in on one. Um, I mean, you want to know what's out there. I won't say just one, but once you get things started, have a general focus. Accomplish that particular goal or task and then move to the next possible method of real estate investing, because there's so many different ways of investing in real estate, but understanding, having a solid basis, having, and that's what I go through with you guys, and this is developing a solid base so you're at a point and you're in a position to be able to scale to do those different things, because as you become more nifty within the investment world, you're going to develop multiple strategies. So as potential deals come to you, you're going to have a solution for them. So keep that in mind. You're going to have a solution for multiple deals, and you're going to actually know if it's going to be for you or if it's going to be for someone else that may be in your network. As you're developing the community with real estate gold diggers, like I said, it may not be a deal for you, but it may be a deal, an opportunity for someone else within your community, and you can still make a couple bucks off of it. So always keep that in mind. Always keep that in mind. All right. Short term versus long term. Let's dive on into this. So, what is short term strategy explained? So, uh, short term strategies basically, this includes house flipping and wholesaling. Flipping can be exciting and lucrative. Yes, definitely big chunks of money, but it's also high stakes because it's a lot going on. You got to manage it. Yes, very true. You need to move fast, stay on budget, and pray the market doesn't take a nosedive right before you sell. And that's what's been happening to some people. And that's why I say it's understanding the current market that you're in, understanding the typical trends. And because it's a deal, if it's going to take you 6 months to rehab a home, the market is going to completely change after 6 months. So that's why, I don't mind bigger projects if you're getting it for very, very low. So that's why I say you got to understand your risk tolerance, but understand why you're taking a bigger risk. If it's a bigger risk, that means it's a much bigger return, much bigger. Versus if you start a project and you're in and out in 30 days, it's rehabbed in 30 days and then it's on the market. Um, that's what you want, getting it on the market. If you're taking some of these bigger projects where the house is falling apart, and I get it, you're getting it for a very low price, but at the same time, you want to be successful with this. So if you can, by the time you finish that 6 month project, you could have picked up and waited a little bit longer and got a property that you could have been in and out in 30 days and had it sold before that property is even finished rehabbed. So keep that in mind. It is a bigger risk when you guys go that route. I've seen people do it. They do it on a regular basis. I'm not sure why. I'm not sure why, but it's just like a lot of people just don't understand, because just because it's an actual deal, people think that this is that they have to get it. Like I just explained to you guys, we showed 129,000. But it wasn't quite a deal for me. But did I make money off of the deal? Yes, I did. I made money off of the deal, and I also was able to help someone. Not only was I able to help them, but it's going to be impactful. That's generational investing right there. 129,000. So when they decide to start having a family, when that and their child becomes of age, they can consider private school. If they go through the school system, once they get to college, now they can go and pay for college. They can actually, at some point, they can probably even sell that property and buy another property. Or even better yet, and this is what their ideal plan is going to be, is now that they have that amount of equity in there, they're going to use that equity to buy other investment properties, not for them to live in, but these are investment properties that they will buy and hold. So now they're building generational wealth, not using the equity in their first property. That's how you force equity. That's how they were able to force the equity, because it's like and then they were able to add value, because at some point they're going to close in that real lanai that I spoke to you guys about. So with that being said, and that's probably about, that was a few hundred. I can't recall the size of it, but that was a few hundred square feet in addition. So they're adding additional value. So, we could talk about appraisals and how that all works out at the end of the day. Now, trying to sell it at that much higher value, it can be a challenge just because of the market. Is somebody going to pay? Like I said, it was over 600,000. Is somebody going to pay that amount for that property? So it's understanding. Especially if you're in a buyer's market. Are they going to be willing to pay that, or are you going to be sitting and holding on to that property? Or if you are going to go ahead and keep that property and just use the equity because the value is there, because you've seen the area sells, keep the value and leverage that equity that's there, and then be able to buy other investment properties and be able to buy and hold those. The strategies may change. You may consider getting a couple of buy and hold and possibly flipping something else. You never know. So they're in a good position. They're in a very good position. It's great to have them as my mentees, because that means they're going to be coming back to me for more information and more suggestions as to how they can move forward. So keep that in mind. So I'm gonna go through the short term. We did the short term strategies. Let's go ahead and talk about long term strategy. Basically, with the long term strategy, that is a buy and buy and hold. So buy and hold, it's classic. We hear about it. That's where your rentals are. Here you can purchase properties and hold on to them, collecting rental income, waiting for property values to increase. This approach requires patience and a strong stomach for occasional tenant drama, but it can provide steady returns and significant appreciation over time. So this is where I was talking about, where you're going to have tenants, things may happen, possible damage to the property, may have to evict someone, but that's why you want to get the property managed, because you want it to basically run on its own. That's why you got the property management in place. That's why you have your super team. Your super team. Be sure to check that out, guys. That free tool that I gave you guys is going to give you more insight on your super team. So active and passive investing. So now let's talk about the involvement level. Do you want to be hands on, or would you prefer to let someone else do the heavy lifting? Guys, your goal, your goal is to build wealth. If you are sitting there digging ditches, cleaning toilets, and repairing toilets, unclogging drains, I know it can be a money saver for you. I understand that. But if you're doing all of this yourself, how are you going to continue to generate wealth? Now, if you only have one or two properties, you may consider this. But how do you get to the third, fourth, fifth, and sixth property? You're going to have systems in place. As you go through this course, I am a very systematic individual. So I don't like to have to do a lot of the same thing, especially if I know something is going to be repeated. How can we be a little bit more efficient with it? And that's just some of my background. How can we be a bit more efficient with it? And as you're starting to look at this as more of a business versus a hobby, you're going to start thinking the same way as well. This is a business. So what do businesses do? Like you look at your McDonald's and so forth. You know, you're always going to hear the hamburger story with them. It's systematic. They understand when the patty goes on, when the mustard, when the ketchup, when the onions, when the cheese goes on. It's the same for every burger. It's the same. So if this is how you become very systematic with this approach, you get your management company in place, you understand that 8 to 10%, getting things in place. These things are in place. So as these things that I'm suggesting to you guys and having you guys set up, and as we're going over it and you're building up those super teams, as I mentioned to you, this is the strategy and the blueprint and the step-by-step guide that you're going to get from this. So this is not me just talking. I'm telling you the steps. So FYI, I'm giving you guys the steps. So this is the steps that you guys are going to need in order to be systematic in your approach so that you're generating the wealth. And that's what your goal is. So you may do one property this year. You may do two properties the next year. Then you may do four properties that following year. You're developing a system. You're going to have already team players already in place to do certain things, to do certain work. These people are already in place. You already know how much they're going to be charging you. You already know how much it costs for materials. You already know what the setup is going to be for that particular property. You already know what doors you want. You already know what hardware you want. Very systematic. No need to recreate the wheel for every property, because every time you do that, I know that when you guys watch some of these TV shows, they're looking at these big $1 million houses and so forth, and they're doing different things. Certain properties you may be able to add certain things, but for the most part, it's very systematic. Okay, there's areas where you are able to be creative, especially if it's with the kitchen and the bathrooms. You can be a little bit creative with that, or if it's like a new flooring that you want to try out. Um, but I wouldn't recreate the wheel for the whole project every time, because every time you do that, it's going to take time. It's going to waste time. You're not going to be able to get in and out. You're not going to be able to use material from the previous job. And that's the thing. As you become very systematic, if you have anything left over from your previous job, especially if it's a specific paint color, if you're using that same gray blue on your walls at this home, you can use the same one at the next property. Keep the buckets of paint. So now you're buying less paint, the same flooring. Now you have to buy less flooring at the next project. So you're kind of saving as you go to the next project. So keep that in mind. Being very systematic. A lot of it, like I said, this is a step-by-step guide that you're being introduced to, and this is going to help you out in the longer run there, guys. So let's go ahead and dive into this so we're not taking too long. Active investing. I want to make sure you guys have this clear and understood. So active investing, if you love being in the thick of things, active investing is for you. This includes managing properties, renovating, and flipping. It's time consuming, but can be incredibly rewarding if you enjoy the hustle and bustle of real estate. So, flipping a property, like I said, it's going to be some management in place. But if you're going to get the right contractors, adult acting contractors. That's why you take the time to screen those individuals, because when you do that and they're on the job, you won't have to be as active as it's suggesting when it comes to active versus passive investing. So keep that in mind. For those who are interested in more of the passive investing, with passive investing, for those who prefer the more laid back approach, passive investing is the way to go. So if you don't really want to be that involved, you really have other things going on, you can, really consider the passive route. That means investing in what's called a REIT, which is spelled REIT, which stands for Real Estate Investment Trust, crowdfunding platforms, or hiring a property management company to handle the day-to-day operations. I like the property management company handling the day-to-day. Trust me, when they're collecting the rents, they're taking the phone calls. There's always going to be something going on. In my market, I'm in the Tampa Bay area. We're in Florida. ACs can be a situation which you don't want that on anyone. So it's always making sure that you're doing the necessary preventative maintenance, and then also already having things in place so if something does happen. That's typically what your management company comes in, and that's where they truly earn that 10% that you may be giving, that 8 to 10%. I usually lean on 10%, just to keep it keep it modest a little bit. So keep that in mind. Um, Still, as you reap the benefits without breaking the sweat, and that's, like I said, that's on the passive. You still get a lot of that investment benefit. You're not as involved, which you not being as involved, you won't have to worry so much about those situations as they occur. So basically, I do have some final thoughts for you guys. Let's get through this. So, final thoughts that I have for you would be, let me get this here for you. Sorry. So, final thoughts that I would have for you, it's you're gonna have to set clear goals. Okay, by setting clear goals, investment goals, and this is when I speak in reference to investment goals. When you're setting clear goals for investments, you are choosing the right strategy that will work for you. Ideally, you know what's going to work for you. Okay, if you're a person that likes to be involved, you like to be hands on, or if you have the time to be hands on, you may be a bit more involved in the process. But like I said, what you're being shown is going to allow you not only to be involved at your discretion, but it's also going to allow you to be systematic and scale. So a lot of the feedback, you have people that cut corners, they're willing to do stuff themselves. Um, but they won't be able to do that forever. And there are going to be some things that you can do on your own that you may not need someone else to be involved. But if you do plan on scaling and finding, because once you're in the project, you want to use that time to find the next project, especially if you have a good crew of contractors. You don't want to have to be at the job site waiting there. You don't want to have to keep making Home Depot runs. You don't want to have to do that. Trust me, it takes up way too much time. And I've been there, I've done that. These are the things that I did when I first got started, thinking that I could save a buck or two. But I realized that at the end of the day, I was losing. And what I mean by that is, like, I could have been marketing the property. I could have been working to get the property sold. I could have been looking at and paying more attention to what properties are available, what properties are selling, communicating with other real estate professionals in the area, letting them know that I have a property that's coming. Hey, I noticed that you sold a few homes in this particular zip code. So that tells me that, hey, you have more buyers because you're attracting buyers in this area. I have this property that's going to be becoming available. It may be of interest to someone that you're attracting. So I'm just letting you know that, that this property should be done in the next 30 days. this is how you communicate, and this is how you get the property sold, and this is how it gets done faster and a bit more efficient. By being a bit more efficient, you're able to move forward, scale, do more properties. You're not holding on to properties as long. Now, depending upon your market, there's going to be different ins and out things that you may need to pay attention to. I'm dealing with a particular market right now where if you need to if you have to submit plans and permits, it's taking them an extremely long time to return or get to approval. When I say extremely, it's taking 3 to 4 months, and it shouldn't take that long. Not that long at all. A few weeks maybe, but not 3, 4 months. And that becomes a challenge because now you have to deal with holding costs. So, guys, be sure if you're working with someone, if you're doing this on your own, there's try to be a part of a community. If you are part of the Real Estate Gold Digger group, perfect. Definitely join the VIP status. Love to have you as a mentee. As being a mentee, you'll be able to as those situations come up, I'll be able to help guide you through it and get you through it. So that's basically what the team does. Or if you're building your super team, lean on your super team because they're going to give you past experience and even some suggestions. That's why I say that super team is important. So be sure to use the code that I provided to you guys to be able to tap into a more detailed conversation about building your super team. So remember, every real estate mogul started with their first property and their first plan. You've got this. So let's set those goals up, map out your strategy, and hit the road to real estate with success. And don't forget to enjoy the ride. After all, the journey is half the fun. So keep that in mind, guys. Understand what your whys are. I appreciate you guys tuning in this evening. This has been a blast. I've had a blast today. So um, yeah, I've had a blast today. So I appreciate you guys tuning in. We'll go ahead and I'll send a recap. So if you guys are getting this, I'll send a recap of what's for this particular for day 2, and then I'll make sure that you have the information about day 3. So day 3 will be next week, next Tuesday, same place, same time, 7:30, and we'll be getting you guys up and going. So I appreciate you tuning in. Once again, it's Chris Brown, your real estate professional and marketing entrepreneur. Take care.